Hey guys, welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Jordan Van Glish, and this time I'm joined by Don Koopman and John from Nomcoms to discuss Golf Story for the Nintendo Switch eShop. So anyway, let's get started. Don, I know you and I have both only played around 2 hours of the game, so I'm going to pass it off to John to start, where are you in the game and what are your impressions so far overall?
So I'm roughly just under 4 hours in, and I've pretty much dedicated the day to this game because it's probably my most anticipated game other than Mario Odyssey at the moment. And that's pretty much because I love Mario Golf from the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance. They were done by Camelot a while ago, and recently Camelot have started making very simple golf games, and I miss the era of wacky RPGs with storylines and a premise beyond just playing golf, so I love these kind of games. So yeah, I've been playing for around 4 hours now, and I am in love with this game. It is definitely the game I've been waiting for all this time, and it surprisingly lives up because we didn't really know a whole lot about it until release. The communication from the developer was a little on the quiet side. But yeah, I'm just really glad that it turned out okay. So you guys have only played it for a little bit.
Yeah.
What are your first impressions too?
So I played it for about, I would say, 2 to 2.5 hours, because I had plenty of other stuff to do today. But what I realized very quickly is that this feels like that spiritual successor to the GBC and the GBA games, Mario Golf-wise, because there's an immediate feeling of openness, and even in the opening area, you immediately feel what they expect of you. You do missions, you participate in challenges, you interact with characters, and you move along as you will. But the great part about it is that besides real actual golf, it's filled with to the brim with gimmicks on the courses. There are other types of golf that you can tackle later on in the game. It has a lot of things going on with it.
And you know, one thing I really like about the progression of this game is there's no waypoints. Right at the beginning is a good example of this. You're kind of told to find 3 very specific characters on the course and sort of challenge them, but there's no marker saying they're here. There's no checklist saying go find this guy. You sort of have to become familiar with the world, which is very easy because they're very self-contained levels.
Yeah.
But I love that though. I love that it's not guiding you along this course and you have to kind of use your own initiative. I think that's very clever.
I know in the settings though, or in the main menu, if you go to your little notepad, it does actually show you, because I was actually having trouble finding one of the 3 people, and it shows you the people that you haven't found yet, and it doesn't tell you where you are, but it shows them in your main menu, and it has a little speech bubble above them, I think, and it says, you can usually find me, practicing on the putting green. So then I knew, oh, okay, I have to go to the practice putting green, and that's where I found the one of the people that I needed to, play golf against.
Sure, it's not like they don't explicitly tell you where they hang at, because if you go there for the first time, they will tell you what they usually be doing during practice. So I picked up on those specific elements really fast. I just needed to find exactly where those locations were, which didn't end up being that much of an hassle. The only thing that kind of annoyed me, internally in buildings, is that I realized I could just walk further than the corners of a wall. That's a little bit how I needed to adjust my mind simply to get that across in my little head.
Yeah, I also found that if you're having trouble finding someone and you don't go into your settings to get a little bit of help, there's so much to do around the map that you're never really bored when walking around. I found so many little side quests and challenges that gave me money and experience points that I was having fun, totally ignoring the story, even in the first hour, just walking up to random people that had, exclamation points above their head and doing some, driving challenge. It just felt really fun just to hit a lot of golf balls and try and get them into the little targets that they had all around the course.
Well, they did it very intentionally, right? Because you also need to have a certain amount of money for your first lesson in the game. So they also sort of force you to walk across that map and actually explore it a little. And there's more than you actually need, for sure. But there is the actual need there to just explore the map a little bit and see what this game has on offer. Which in its first initial beginnings, it's just a regular type of golf, but you are like, it's made very clear of what you need to do.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I did have trouble finding one person, but I was never confused what the goal was. And I think, that's a really strong start to a game that, you're not confused within the first 2 hours of the game. John, like, now that you've progressed more and more into the story, how are the objectives? Like, are there branching paths, or does it feel pretty linear? Like, how does that go?
It's a pretty linear game, but you're kind of going from different course to different course. So you start off in like your regular golf course, but the story that it tells is quite a wacky one. So basically the premise is you're a child at the start, and you're a child who loves golf. And then the years go by, and all of a sudden you're a struggling golfer. And you're trying to make your break into the world of golf in this quite dodgy golf course. It's quite run down, and the management aren't exactly moral. And so what they ask you to do is go to different golf courses and kind of spy on them and find out what they're doing, and you kind of try and take ideas from them. So you find yourself going from your regular kind of golf course to like a more autumny one, and there's like the one up in the skies in the mountains, so there's a lot of variety there. And what I quite like about the story too is it gets very wacky. So at one point you're sort of fighting off a swarm of moles who've been stealing golf balls. And it turns out they're stealing golf balls to give to this gothic couple who are putting them into skeletons. It gets very crazy. And what I quite like about the objectives too is it's kind of like Professor Layton, where golf solves everything. So like Layton puzzles solve everything. And they become very self-aware about this too. So like, there's this one point where you're meant to return these coloured golf balls to a bird's nest, because they're not really golf balls, they're eggs. So the woman says to you, quickly, you gotta put them into the holes, and then you say something like, wouldn't it just be easier just to go over there and put them in the hole, give them to the birds themselves? You go, no, it's no time, you have to put them. So, so it's very self-aware about its objectives, and it's really funny.
Yeah, I think the main character is just super sarcastic against everything, and it helps to offset like the crazy characters you meet, because you're kind of experiencing everything alongside with him, and you're just ending up in a surreal world after one another. And I particularly felt that when I entered like the first golf area after that initial start, which was very Jurassic, and they all talk in that specific way, like the very old caveman sort of way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I realized how weird this game is, and I really like it for it too.
Oh yeah, the writing is absolutely incredible in my opinion. Like, I feel like there's a pun in almost every other line of dialogue, and some are subtle and they don't overdo it too much. Like I feel like I met a character who I felt like it was his goal to have a pun in every little sentence, because he just kept on going, pun after golf pun. But I mean, it was really well written. So far it is, and I've laughed out loud a number of times with just how great the writing is, and the characters are great too. Like you said, the main character, hilarious, super sarcastic, and everyone at the starting, the home golf course, underestimates him, even though, like, if you're a competent player, like, you can be hitting, birdies, like, you can be playing pretty well right at the start with the starting clubs, and not having many upgrades. But even if you like kill the other people in a golf match, they're still like underestimating you and telling you that you're bad, and it creates for some really, really funny dialogue.
For sure, especially with the coach. Like, the coach is like, you're just terrible, you're just absolutely terrible, you should go home, you're just awful. But then he's like, okay, so I'm just gonna prove myself to you. It's like, alright, let's go do it.
It's actually really motivating too, because you start off just sort of being told that you're rubbish, and like to take a 180 shot that way, and that was a good line. And yeah, as the game goes on, you start to become the hope of this course, and they rely on you a lot more. So I guess in that sense, the writing really does accomplish its goal of making you want to continue going along the game. And I think I would kind of call this the Earthbound of golf games. That's what the writing reminded me of a lot. It has a very Earthbound-y vibe.
Yeah, for sure. I can definitely see where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not too often that RPGs like this, you know, put us in a very modern setting with modern dialogue. I know it's becoming more and more common, but, you know, most people, when they think of, you know, RPGs and JRPGs, it's like a Final Fantasy kind of epic world, and it's really cool to just be in a golf course. And, you know, I actually, a while back, like, kind of as a kid, I played golf, and it's really cool to see how much they nailed the feeling of, you know, golf culture and, you know, what a golf course kind of feels like and looks like. It was just really cool to, like, jump into this world and kind of be thrown back to when I was, like, you know, 12 years old, you know, 10 to 12, I played golf, and they just really nailed it. Like, they really seem to know what they're doing with this.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say the world is my favorite part of this game, but the golf itself is surprisingly in-depth. So it's very accessible, very simple, in that you can literally just sort of point where you want to go and then, you know, do how hard you want to hit it, but there's so much more to that. You can change what clubs you have, you can decide exactly where you want to hit the ball, and you also have wind direction to take into account too, so it is a very in-depth game. And even though it's 2D, you can sort of feel the depth to the courses, and even when you can't see them quite properly, they have a little bit in the corner telling you exactly how sort of slopey the slope is.
Yes, I feel that, like, in comparison to, say, Mario Golf is like very simple action. Even if you do like your advanced tactics, it's pretty straightforward. With Golf Story, like, the twists and turns that you can give the ball are sort of insane, and you really need to think about it. Like, early on, you get this drive challenge, and then you realize what kind of moves you can actually pull off, because you need to shoot yourself through two of these goons who don't want to go out of their way. So with the twist that you are giving the ball and the curve that you're giving it, it really helps you to succeed that challenge.
Yeah, I found it, like, crazy how they actually they didn't 3D model, but it feels like there's a 3D model of the ball in the bottom right corner when you're, you know, lining up to hit. And with the press of a button, you can just move a little red dot on that ball and pick exactly where on the ball you want to hit. And in addition to that, you can hold down, like, the left and right triggers to do topspin or backspin. If you want to chip it, like, there's so much you can do in one shot.
I was surprised how realistic the physics are too. Like, the ball sort of travels like it should, and I wasn't really expecting that in a 2D golf game. Like, it isn't just a little bounce; it kind of just travels with the course. And there's two very cool instances up in the mountains where there's two challenges. One of them has you kind of putt very gently because the course sort of takes the ball along and builds the momentum that way. So if you do it too hard, you'll just keep rolling off the edge. If you do it too softly, you won't quite make it. So you sort of have to understand what you're working with the course. And there's another very cool challenge where you're working against the wind. So you're up in the mountains, it's very, very windy. And you kind of have to take a few practice shots, I suppose, because the wind's unpredictable. So you'll aim you'll aim meters away from the hole and shoot off and sort of hope the wind carries it there. It's very cool to have these outside mechanics go into your swings, and it's not what I expected from a game like this.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, like, the one thing that's not realistic is, why are there moles on the golf course that carry my ball into the sand traps?
Well, there is some plot about that, and I won't quite get into it here, but they do explain it.
Yeah, that definitely. I was playing against the computer in a round, and he definitely got screwed over. He was putting, and there was it shows you where the moles, their radius is of, capture, and he was putting, and he was right next to the hole, and he overshot the hole by like a few inches right into that radius, and the mole carried him all the way to the sand trap. I felt so bad for him.
What I really like about this game is there's so much value. Like, you start off in the starting area, and I think there's 9 holes. Is it 9 holes or 7 holes?
Yeah, 9 holes.
9 holes. Okay. Yes, you start off in that area, and I was kind of thinking, like, is this where you spend the entire game? But then, you know, you go outside into the world map, and all of a sudden you can see like 5 different areas, and each of them have 9 holes. So that's like a total of like 41. My maths is failing me there. It is
45.
There you go, 40, not 41, 45 holes in total there. And I'm not entirely sure there are more, so I haven't completed the game yet. So that's quite a lot of value there. So you've got an entire story of 45 holes. But then there's more. There's more styles of golf you can play. There's mini golf. There's disc golf. There's even what's the other one?
There's the drone. I remember in the trailer.
Yeah, drone golf too. So there's so many different ways to play this game, and each of these modes is quite in depth. Dan, have you gotten to disc golf in your game at all?
Yes, I have gotten to disc golf.
So how did you find that?
I was surprised with how well it worked.
Yeah, I struggled a little bit at first. I didn't quite understand the mechanics, but once
Sure,
once you get it,
yeah. I mean, the mechanics themselves you definitely need to get a hang on because they're so significantly different from regular golf. But once you get going and you understand it and you get it, it feels really nice to play.
I guess the best way to describe it is the disc is kind of like a remote control, and you get to guide it around. So you throw it, which and you can choose how hard you want to throw it. And that will like say how fast it is and how long it goes for. But you then have to kind of steer it, which I wasn't expecting. So you have to sort of work with the momentum that you put in at first, but then carry it through with your own directions. It's very arcadey. It wasn't what I was thinking. I thought you might have to actually, you know, just like a golf club, just sort of let it go forward, but you actually steer it.
Yeah, that's where my problems lie. I need to remind myself that specific part of the game, it feels more arcadey than the rest of it. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. It's just that you need to be adjusted to it. And initially I thought this would be... I couldn't really steer it as much as I thought I could.
Yeah. And there's this very specific area which is entirely disc golf. And it's full of obstacles like trees and rocks and stuff like that. And it's actually very fun to sort of work around that, to try and steer around these trees in very close quarters. There's some very unique moments in that area. And I like it a lot. I like there's so many options for this game. And it's not just the RPG, because you can do a free play mode too, which is 2-player. So you can play any of these courses, as long as you've played them in the RPG. And play them with a friend. So there's a lot of value going on here.
Yeah.
Have you, John? Have you reached a point where you can explore other modes besides disc golf? Like, have you touched mini golf or drone golf yet?
Not drone golf. There's a mini golf area in the very first area where they're very shady about it at first, and like you can't come in here. And they just sort of like throw you out if you try and go in.
Yeah, I ran into those guys. I didn't know what that was about.
So mini golf is pretty cool. It's it kind of takes that putting mechanic, so it's not quite like disc golf where it's an entirely new premise. It takes something that's quite familiar already, but the course design is completely different. And I think that's where the strengths are there. And that's really the strength of Golf Story in general, is variety, because there's so many different things to do. But it also fills that void of Mario Golf, which we haven't really had in years. I know there was a Mario Golf on 3DS, but this isn't like that. This is completely different.
To be fair, that Mario Golf game on 3DS was really good, but...
It was good, but it's still not the same kind of RPG like Camelot used to make.
Sure, yeah.
And I'd like these guys to do like a tennis story too, because I miss the tennis RPGs.
Oh, I'd totally be down for a tennis RPG. That'd be so much fun.
They should make just an RPG with every single sport imaginable.
Yeah, I mean, Golf Story has a lot of variety, but can you imagine if they went all out and had like tennis and golf and, I don't know, football?
Both footballs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess in this discussion it's a little unclear when someone says football.
Soccer ball.
Something else in the game that that's blown me away. Like, we've talked about, a lot about the presentation of the game, but we haven't really touched on, visuals and music and all that. I think they're really knocking it out of the park there. I guess that's a baseball pun, which it doesn't really fit, but they've really hit a hole-in-one on this one. No, but I really do think that visually the game looks great. The sound is great. At the end of like cutscenes, the sound does kind of like cut off abruptly and goes back to, you know, whatever area you're in. But the tracks are very, very catchy. I think it's beautifully composed.
Absolutely. And something I can't believe we haven't mentioned yet is HD Rumble.
Yes.
Probably the best use ever. Maybe outside of 1-2-Switch's ball count.
I would say that the feeling of shooting and graceful explosion machine is also very nice.
Yeah, that's very distinct. But yeah, I think that what Golf Story achieves with its HD Rumble is it kind of matches it with the sound design. So every kind of smack of the ball, you feel, like you hear it and you feel it in your hands. And I love when you kind of chip it in from a distance and you feel it bounce off the flag and into the hole. Because you feel every single bounce in this game, and it's remarkable. And it's one of the first things you feel too, like you turn the game on, and even the icons in the menu have very heavy HD Rumble implementation. So as soon as you press the icon, you sort of feel this sort of feedback from it. And it's in every single text box too. Whenever you're talking to someone, there's this like very nice springy feeling every single time you scroll the text.
Or if every time the text is bold or italic, it will do that as well.
Yeah, it's very unique.
I wanted to touch on the text box actually, because I was reading some of the comments on Derek's Game & Watch that he did this morning, and a lot of people, not a lot, but a few people were mentioning, you know, oh, this game has a very 16-bit style, but then why is the UI, you know, not, you know, 16-bit? Why is it so clean? I actually found that the text boxes, they're like characters in of themselves. They're moving all around and, you know, tilting. You know, you really, these characters, it's hard to emote these 16-bit characters like too much, but the text boxes really do add to these characters, in my opinion. I don't know what you guys think about that.
No, I absolutely agree with that. I feel that in the style they've chosen, they were very limited with their options of like telling us how the characters really feel, and only text really goes so far. So I think that the text boxes and how they are represented in the game are a nice compromise.
Yeah, I agree too. I've seen some people a bit harsh on the font. I don't really get that. It's very easy to read. And yeah, as you guys said, the emotion you feel from the way the text moves around is so unique and dynamic. Like, even the font size will sort of go down if someone's a bit upset, or it will tilt. And yeah, it really just helps these little 16-bit characters be more characteristic.
Yeah, the text box tilt was the first time that I really noticed it. Like, someone was sad and their text got all small, and then the text box kind of drooped down, and I couldn't help but like feel, you know, sad for this character.
Yeah. So I actually want to ask this question because the Switch eShop is pretty damn packed this week. Do you guys think Golf Story is the must-have title this week?
Ooh, I've not played every single title this week, I will tell you that much. I would say... I mean, sure. I think this is going to be the most entertaining title with the amount of content you're getting. It's also, I also can see how some people are more excited for, say, maybe a Picross game, for example. Because they're that type of gamer too. But as far as my personal preferences are concerned, I would say that this is the most interesting title of this week.
Yeah, the same goes for me, definitely. Like, Golf Story, for $15 at that too, like, I've been pulled in. I've played only 2 hours so far, but all of that 2 hours has been, you know, I'm very into this game. And if it can keep that up even for only like, you know, 7-8 more hours for $15, like, that's, you know, you can't really beat that. Like a 10-hour great RPG. I mean, I'm sure it's more than that, but it's been very good.
I mean, even if it is only 10 hours, you still have all that free play stuff. So it's a huge multiplayer game too.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I haven't, you know, dove into the multiplayer section yet, but I wonder, I don't know if either of you have, but can you change things up, like wind and, you know, all the conditions that affect the course to make each round with a friend, you know, feel unique from the last one? You know?
I flipped around in the settings a bit. You can change your characters, so you can be very different characters to what you are in the game. You can change the courses, change the mode. I'm not entirely sure about the characteristics of the level. I don't know how dynamic that gets.
I don't think you can, but don't quote me on that.
Okay. And just curious, do either of you guys have any, issues so far with the game, or has it all been, smooth sailing?
I'm trying to think of any issues that I might have. I think that when you first try to shift the ball around and choose your clubs on the control stick, that might feel a little bit awkward.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a while to fully get used to it, but after, say, an hour, it sort of became second nature.
My main issue initially arose with the camera, and that's that the course that you see is quite zoomed in, and you don't really get an overview apart from when you first start the course. But then I realised the right stick actually does let you pan around a bit. Not very much, but then I realised if you click down on the right stick it zooms out. So you actually get a lot more perspective that way. The game doesn't tell you that, and it might tell you in the pause menu, but I didn't look. But the actual tutorials don't tell you that. So it's something I kind of found with experimentation. So that kind of addresses my issues. So I had problems, but it turned out okay in the end.
Well, that also means that the game doesn't explain everything about controls extremely well.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
And something that they don't explain is I was pressing every single button while playing, and even the pause menu doesn't have the controls. You have to actually hit the minus button while golfing, and it brings up a controller on screen and shows you all of the controls that way. So, it could do a little bit better of a job, explaining the controls, because the characters do kind of mention it in passing, like, oh, if I was hitting this ball, I'd hold down, the right trigger.
Yeah,
it's very funny in that way. But even once you get into the game, they kind of let go, and you have to kind of remember or find out where those controls are, which I did. But I saw you tweet about pressing the right stick down to zoom out. I still, I wish I could see where the green was at all times. Unless I'm doing something wrong, you still can't pan around that far.
Right.
And when I'm teeing off, I like to, first thing I like to do is see where's the green, what's the path that I want to do to get there. Like, what path do I want to take to get to the green? I don't like just seeing, okay, well, there's fairway up here, I'll just hit it there and hope that that's my best shot.
I realized also something that I've also found a negative. A few times the camera had the intention of moving in a completely different direction together with your shot, despite not being a very optimal route. Early on in one of the levels that you actually face the first character in the first computer character that you face, and then actually in the stroke play, there's one specific stage where it moves you to the forest instead of the actual greenway. And I had to adjust a lot to get my character back on track.
I do remember that,
Yeah.
now that you mention it.
Yeah, the level design has some weird context every now and then. Like, levels don't really fit together. I guess you just assume that there's sort of like a pathway in between that screen and that screen. But yeah,
I mean, the pathways are definitely there, and they functioned well in my humble opinion. But the camera or the system that tracks where you are doesn't always well accommodate that.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree. I was actually going to mention the very same thing. It's more than one occasion. Like, sometimes screens will connect together like you think they will. Other times the camera will just completely be in a different area. Yeah, it's very weird.
I think, don't quote me on this, but I think the issue arises from when you start off on a hole. I think it's pointing you towards the green initially. So that's why it might have been pointing you into the trees. I could be wrong, because, I do remember that hole, and I think you kind of had to go around the trees, but it might have been pointing you through them. But then again, I couldn't zoom out far enough to see where the hole was.
The hole was all the way down there, so it wasn't even close.
Okay.
But why it was put there, I have no clue.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed really strange because you also can't really judge that specific shot really well, because you either crash into a mole, land in the middle ground where you have a little bit of breathing room, or go into the water. So the game would have been better there to just give you a recommended shot, but alas, it didn't do that.
So I think my last kind of nitpick here is the D-pad changes your clubs when you're in the overworld. So you can't actually control this game with the D-pad unless there's an option in the controls. I'm not entirely sure about that. But the default controls have the analog stick. So how do you guys feel about moving around in 8 directions with analog?
I'm fine with that. I don't have an issue with that.
It's not like a huge issue to me, but it does just feel weird, using the control stick and only going in 8 directions. Like when there is 8 directions, I think I'd prefer to use a D-pad. 2D games, that's just my preferred way of playing, but it's not the biggest deal, and I didn't see anything in the settings to change that.
And I think it's a bit better for portable mode, because we don't really have that real D-pad there. And what I will say about portable mode actually is this game looks so good on the Switch's screen. The colours just completely pop off, it looks amazing.
I definitely agree. I've been playing pretty much exclusively in portable mode since I got the game, and it's looked great. I've had a friend come up to me while I was playing, and he was impressed with how colorful my Switch was looking.
I've been solely playing it on the television, so I haven't really had the time to try it in handheld mode.
I was mostly recording on docked. But there was this one mission where you kind of had to find 5 different things, so I thought, I may as well just take this out handheld, and it impressed me so much.
Alright, fair enough.
Yeah,
definitely a great game that everyone should be picking up. Do we have any final thoughts about the game, or anything we want to say before we close out this discussion?
I think we pretty much wrapped it up nicely, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to echo how much I like this game, because I've wanted this sort of golf RPG for a long time, and this is coming from a developer who's pretty unknown. They kind of came out of nowhere, and all of a sudden they were a spotlight in indie game, and they just done an amazing job, and well done to the developer.
Sidebar Games, that's the developer.
Yeah, we'll plug them here. Go follow their Twitter for how infrequently they tweet, though.
Well, to be fair, they're actually working on a game in development, so I wouldn't tweet either
true.
if I was doing that.
We'll let you off this time, sidebar.
But you better let us know when that basketball or soccer or football game is coming.
Or all of the above.
Yeah.
Or baseball, or...
Yeah,
I have
baseball.
nothing.
They could probably hit that one out of the park.
Surf Story, I called it.
Croquet Story.
Cave Story? No.
Wait.
I think that exists. So I think we're going to wrap up here. So thank you guys for joining me on this discussion. If you guys like this video, make sure you subscribe to GameXplain, where you can find more on Golf Story, the Nintendo Switch, and everything else gaming. Bye.